Don't make a scene, Dad. It's just a small Valentine's dinner. Only close family. That was Leslie's way of saying you're not welcome. Again, she said it over the phone, while I stood in the hardware store, holding a can of wood stain for the rocking chair I'd been fixing up for my granddaughter. My heart didn't drop. Not anymore. That trick stopped working years ago. But something did change. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. It was the way she said, just as if my absence was natural. Routine. Expected. Like the sun sets, the tide comes in, and Baxter doesn't get invited. I hung up without another word. That night, I sat alone in my two-bedroom house, the one I bought when Tracy was still alive. The walls were quieter now, the laughter long gone. What remained was dust, fading photos, and memories that no longer fit the family I helped build. Leslie was always like this, calculating, image-obsessed, allergic to anything that didn't sparkle in a group photo. But Clark, my son, he used to be different. He used to ride his bike down the gravel path just to hand me a drawing and say, "I made this for you, Dad." Now he couldn't even pick up the phone without his wife Robin screening the call. I was tolerated, used when they needed a handyman, a babysitter, a last-minute loan, but never included. They said I was too quiet, not good with people, old-fashioned. Funny how that only became a problem after Tracy passed and Robin's family started hosting real events, catered dinners, theme parties, charity fundraisers with scripted toasts. And I became the ghost with the wallet. They never asked where the tuition money came from, or how Clark got the down payment for their house, or who paid off Leslie's credit card debt after her boutique business folded, because they didn't want to know. They wanted the illusion, and I let them have it. Until now. On February 1st, I opened the old lockbox in the basement, the one with every receipt, every transfer, every unsent letter I ever wrote when I still believed they'd understand. The pages were yellowing, my handwriting crooked, but the truth was loud and clear. Every sacrifice, every loan, every cover-up. I spent that night making copies. By the time the sun rose, I had the outline of a plan. Revenge wouldn't come in rage. It would come in formality, in velvet envelopes, in the kind of truth that stains silk dresses and shatters wine glasses, because they wanted their perfect Valentine's Day, and I was going to give it to them. On February 2nd, I mailed a custom invitation, embossed, elegant. You are cordially invited to a private Valentine celebration, hosted by Baxter. Dress formal. Come with love. And beneath the RSVP card in small script, every love story has a beginning and a cost. I dropped the envelopes into the postbox with the same care a jeweler might place a diamond onto velvet, each one a weapon, sheathed in cursive and class. Embossed invitations, thick cream cardstock, sealed with red wax. They'd open them and smile. That was the point. They wouldn't see the blade until it was already in. By February 3rd, I received the first message. Robin. Wow, Baxter. That's unexpected. What a thoughtful idea. We'd love to come. Can we bring anything? I stared at the screen for a moment before replying. Just yourselves. And your honesty. She responded with the heart emoji. Perfect. Leslie followed the next day. Fancy, Dad. I thought you didn't do Valentines. I didn't reply. Let the silence carry more weight than anything I could have written. I spent the next few days preparing. The venue. A private dining hall at the old Bellamy Inn. Not their style. No Instagram chandeliers or hors d'oeuvres made from air and arrogance. This place had oak floors, antique lamps, and a fireplace that still crackled like it meant something. I booked it under a friend's name. Didn't want questions. Didn't want them to know the dinner wasn't just for them. I made a guest list. Not large, just precise. 3 former neighbors who remembered how many times Clark borrowed without paying back. A retired school counselor who helped Leslie when she nearly flunked out sophomore year and whom she never thanked. A woman named Dawn, who once worked with Robin before being fired, scapegoated to protect her boss's spotless image. And then, just for flavor, Chad and Tracy's old friends. The ones Leslie and Robin avoided at family reunions, because they didn't fit the aesthetic. Every one of them received an invitation. Same card, same elegant calligraphy. No context, just a promise, a night to remember, with truth served fresh. I spent my nights reviewing every document, credit transfers, bank statements, signed receipts. I had timelines that proved every time I bailed them out, loans listed as gifts, favors repackaged as family duties. I even printed screenshots of texts they forgot I saved, like the one where Leslie said, "We'll just tell him it's a fundraiser. He never asks questions anyway." Or when Robin wrote, "Don't invite him. It's too awkward with my parents there. We'll make up something later." Those would go in the personalized folders. Each guest would get one, elegant, bound in red leather. Inside, nothing but truth. I was done being their blank check. This Valentine's, they'd feel every signature I ever scribbled for their comfort. On February 10th, I received a voicemail. It was Clark. "Hey, Dad, just wanted to say thanks for including us. We're all excited. Been a while since we did something just us. Robin's picking out a dress. I'll bring the wine." He paused, then added, almost softly, "Feels good to be thought of again." I stared at the phone long after the message ended, because he didn't realize. He wasn't being thought of. He was being remembered, exactly as he'd forgotten me. February 11th. For days until showtime, I stood in the middle of the Bellamy's private dining room, picturing how the evening would unfold. There was something almost sacred about the space, the way the candlelight caught on the mahogany, how the old brass sconces hummed low with warmth. It wasn't luxury. It was legacy, something my family never seemed to understand. But they would. The long table was already in place, enough for 16 guests. Not just family, but history, witnesses. Every seat had a nameplate, elegant, raised ink on thick parchment. In front of each, a red leather folder. Still empty. For now. I had plans for those. The caterer, a man named Leroy, had worked private events for 30 years, knew how to keep his mouth shut and his ears open. I handed him the evening schedule and a crisp envelope. "I need 3 things," I told him. "Precision, privacy, and perfect timing." He grinned. "You're planning something." "I'm telling a story." He just nodded and got to work. Back at home, I laid out the folders like playing cards across my dining table. One by one, I filled them. For Leslie, a copy of the bank transfer I made when she overdrew her business account, the one she never acknowledged. Attached to it, an invoice from the bankruptcy lawyer I secretly paid to clean up her mess before the IRS came knocking. For Clark, a letter I wrote him after Tracy's funeral, the one I never sent. It ended with, "You are the only reason I kept going. Please don't forget who raised you." He forgot anyway. For Robin, a printed email from her company's HR rep, requesting a formal apology to Dawn, an apology she refused to give. Beneath it, a thank you note Dawn wrote to me last year. "You're the only one who remembered I existed." Each folder had a title on the first page, "The Cost of Being Loved Quietly." I wasn't doing this for revenge anymore. I was doing this for acknowledgement, to be seen, to remind them that silence isn't absence, it's endurance. On February 12th, I visited the florist, ordered one single arrangement. Roses. No, too romantic, too easy. I chose white camellias. They mean remembrance. The florist asked if it was for a funeral. In a way, I said. Then I went to the print shop, made one last item, a poster, full color, 24 by 36. It was a collage, photos spanning 30 years, me with the kids, school plays, hospital visits, handwritten notes from Tracy, receipts, birthday cards I sent that were never opened, all layered together. In the center, a quote, "Love unspoken is still a debt." It would be unveiled at dessert. Let them eat truth with their chocolate mousse. That night, I got an email from Robin. "Quick question, did you also invite Chad and Dawn? Leslie saw something on Facebook. Just wondering if it's going to be more of a family dinner or like a bigger thing." I hovered over the keyboard, then typed. "It's a celebration of what makes a family. Hope that answers your question." She didn't reply, but I knew she'd be thinking about it all night, and that was exactly what I wanted. February 13th. The calm before the storm. The Bellamy and staff moved like clockwork, polishing glasses, arranging candles, setting out silver flatware that hadn't lost its luster in decades. The air in that room was thick with the kind of expectation that clings to a wedding or a reading. Except this was neither. This was Judgment Day. Wrapped in linen and wine, I stood near the fireplace, watching Leroy and his team rehearse the timing of each course. I told him the moment dessert was served, I'd need 2 spotlights dimmed and the projector turned on. I'd also need complete silence. He raised an eyebrow but didn't ask why. Professional to the end. By 3 p.m., everything was in place. The folders rested on each chair. The flower arrangement, a single centerpiece of white camellias and black ribbon, was delivered and placed at the head of the table. My seat. The slideshow was loaded on a private flash drive labeled Baxter_Final. And in my breast pocket was one last edition, a letter, to be read aloud. Not angry, not dramatic, just honest. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to accuse. I was going to remind them that I was there. That every sacrifice, every erased weekend, every check signed in silence, was done in the name of love. But love, when ignored too long, calcifies into truth. And truth, well, it doesn't blink when the candles dim. That evening, I sat alone in my house, eating a plain turkey sandwich and sipping tea. It was the same chair I'd eaten in every Valentine's Day since Tracy passed. No cards, no visits, just secondhand silence. But tomorrow I'd be heard. My phone buzzed. A message from Leslie. Just confirming tomorrow is at 6 p.m.? Formal, right? I replied, yes. And yes, please be prompt. 5 minutes later, a message from Clark. Thanks for putting this together, Dad. Been a rough few months. Looking forward to it. I stared at the screen, his words bittersweet. Funny how people only look forward when they don't know what's coming. At 10:47 p.m., another message came in, this one anonymous. You think you're the only one with secrets? Careful what you reveal tomorrow. You might just lose the last thing holding them together. No signature, but I knew that voice. Robin was getting nervous. Good. Let her squirm. Valentine's Day. The kind of cold that bites through your coat. The kind Tracy used to call good fire weather. I woke up early, but I didn't rush. Every detail had been rehearsed a dozen times in my head. Today wasn't about improvisation. It was about revelation. By 4 p.m., I was at the Bellamy Inn. The room looked perfect. The kind of warmth and elegance that could fool anyone into thinking this night was crafted from love. And in a way it was. Just not the kind they understood. I wore my best suit, dark gray, clean lines. Cufflinks Tracy had given me one anniversary long ago. Around my wrist, her old bracelet, not for show, but for grounding. I needed her close. Guests began to arrive just after 5:30. First came Chad and Dawn, cautious but curious. Dawn gave me a knowing look. She suspected something. Chad, meanwhile, looked around like he'd stepped into a movie set. Then came the others. Old neighbors, forgotten friends, and finally the family. Leslie walked in first, draped in red silk and tension. She saw the table, the flowers, the folders. Her smile faltered. Wow, okay, this is fancy, she muttered, scanning the room. Behind her, Robin entered, poised, polished, but alert. She held Clark's arm like a lifeline. He looked genuinely happy to be there, which made what came next harder, but not enough to stop me. By 6:05, everyone was seated. The lights dimmed. The candles flickered. The meal began. Salads, then braised short ribs. Every bite was met with polite compliments, wine refills, and the occasional puzzled glance at the unopened leather folders resting on each plate. I stood only once during the main course, raised my glass, to family, and to love in all its complicated, unforgettable forms. They toasted back, even Robin, especially Robin. Then dessert arrived. Molten chocolate tarts. Forks scraped. Laughter rose. And that's when I nodded at Leroy. The lights dimmed further. The projector hummed to life. On the screen, a photo of a 5-year-old Clark holding a drawing of our old house. Caption beneath it, "To Dad, you make everything work." Then the next slide, a check, from me, made out to Leslie's company, dated 3 days before she claimed she built it from scratch. Then another, a credit card statement from a joint account I let Robin use, the same one she denied existed. Their laughter stopped. Forks paused midair, and I stepped up to the podium. I opened my folder, took out the letter, unfolded it slowly. "Tonight," I began, "is not about punishment. It's about memory. Because what you forgot, I never could." Robin shifted in her seat. Clark's brow furrowed. "And Leslie," she whispered, "what is this?" I looked at her and smiled. "I know what this looks like," I said, eyes sweeping the room. Every face was frozen, forks suspended, glasses half lifted. Even the waitstaff stood perfectly still, unsure whether to continue pouring wine or retreat into the shadows. "This isn't a speech. It's a reminder." I unfolded the letter. It shook slightly in my hand, not from nerves, from the weight of years finally being set down. "I loved you the way a builder loves his house, brick by brick, expecting nothing in return but that it stays standing. I paid for the foundation. You just moved in." No one spoke. I continued. "To Clark, I paid your college tuition. Quietly, even after you said you got a merit scholarship. I smiled and nodded while you lied to my face." He flinched. "Leslie, when your boutique folded, I paid off your credit debt. You never asked me directly, but you knew I would. And when the final payment cleared, you posted online that your discipline and hustle got you out of it." Her jaw tightened. "And Robin," I turned toward her slowly, "you've kept me away from your children's birthdays because you said I didn't match the energy of your family. Yet it was my name that co-signed your first home loan, the loan your parents couldn't qualify for because of the audit I covered for them years ago." Gasps. Actual gasps from the guests. Dawn looked like she might cry. Chad leaned forward, riveted. I raised the letter a little higher. "I am not bitter, but I am done being forgotten. Tonight, each of you has a folder. Inside is your part of this story. Documents, letters, photos. Not to shame you, to ground you." People started opening their folders. Paper rustled like 1,000 secrets waking up. Leslie's eyes scanned the first page, her cheeks draining color. Robin whispered something to Clark. He didn't respond. He was too busy reading. I looked to the guests who weren't part of the betrayal. Dawn, Chad, the neighbors. "You were invited here because you remember who I used to be, not the man they shaped me into. You remember the favors, the rides, the late-night calls, and you never pretended I didn't exist." Dawn nodded. One tear rolled down her cheek. I stepped back. "I'm not asking for apologies, just recognition." Then I turned toward the screen, where the final slide now glowed. A photo of Tracy and me, holding baby Clark and Leslie, beaming under a July sun. Below it, love was never the problem. Memory was. A chair scraped loudly. Robin stood, her folder clutched tight. "This is emotional manipulation," she said, voice trembling. And I looked at her, calm as the fire behind me, and said, "No, this is memory with receipts." Robin's voice echoed like a slap across the room. "This is emotional manipulation." She stood rigid, folder in hand, her wine glass untouched, her face a mask of fury and fear. I didn't flinch. "Manipulation," I said slowly, "is asking someone for silence in exchange for comfort. What I did tonight was disclosure." She scoffed, but the confidence was gone. The rest of the room remained frozen. The guests caught between politeness and curiosity, unsure whether to leave or watch history unravel in real time. Clark finally spoke. "Robin," his voice cracked, "is any of this true?" She didn't answer. Instead, she looked at me. "You blindsided us." "No," I said. "You made sure I stayed out of sight. I just turned the lights back on." Leslie was still reading her folder, one page at a time. She wasn't crying. Not yet. But her breathing had gone shallow, and she hadn't touched her dessert. She looked rattled, like the ground beneath her was unfamiliar. I turned to the guests. You may be wondering why I brought you here to witness this. It's simple. When the truth has no place at the family table, sometimes it needs a bigger one. No one argued. Dawn wiped her cheek and smiled softly, mouthing thank you. Chad leaned over to whisper something to her. The air shifted. The power dynamic flipped. Robin sat back down. Slowly, carefully. Leslie finally looked up. Her voice was quiet. Why didn't you ever tell us all this? I tried, I said, in ways you wouldn't hear. In silence, in support, in every yes when you offered me nothing but absence. Clark was holding his folder now, not reading it, just gripping it like it might bite. I didn't know you paid for college, he muttered. I gave him a look. Not angry, just steady. You didn't want to know. He didn't argue, because deep down, he knew that was true. I sat back down at the head of the table, picked up my fork, took a bite of chocolate tart. It was good, rich, balanced, fitting. No one else touched theirs. Eventually, people began to murmur, shift, and rise. Some guests came to thank me. Some just nodded, eyes wide shaken. But everyone left changed. The family didn't leave together. Leslie walked out first, folder tucked under her coat, like a confession. Robin left next, silent, tight-lipped, her heels clicking like a countdown. Clark lingered. He looked at me with something between shame and awe. Then he said quietly, "Can we talk? Not now, but soon." I nodded. "Whenever you're ready." Later that night, alone at home, I found a card in my mailbox. No envelope, just a folded note, inside my granddaughter's handwriting. "Grandpa, I heard what you did. I'm proud of you." Beneath that, a single line. "I hope I grow up to remember better than they did." I read the note from my granddaughter at least 5 times before I let myself smile. Out of all the voices I expected to hear from after that night, hers was the last, and the most important. Children don't need spreadsheets to recognize truth. They feel it. They know when someone has been wronged, and when someone has finally stood up. That little handwritten card, with its uneven letters and folded edge, said more than all the silence I'd endured for years. It meant I hadn't wasted my breath, or my life. The next morning, I woke up to 2 voicemails. The first was from Dawn. "Baxter, that was the bravest thing I've ever seen, and long overdue. I hope it gave you peace." It gave me some, that's for sure. The second was from Clark. "Hey, Dad. I don't know what to say. I read everything. Twice. Some of it hurt. Some of it, I just didn't know, or didn't want to. I'm sorry. I want to come by this weekend, if that's okay." I saved both messages, not for proof, for memory, because I'd learned that memory fades fast when it's inconvenient. By Saturday, Clark showed up, alone. No Robin, no polished smile, just him in a hoodie and jeans, holding a brown paper bag. "Brought pie," he said. It was cherry, Tracy's favorite. I invited him in. We didn't talk right away. We just sat, ate a few bites, and let the quiet settle. Eventually, he spoke. "I should have asked questions," he said, "about the house, the loans, all of it." I didn't say anything. I guess I was so busy trying to build my own life, I never looked back to see whose bricks I was using. That one landed. I nodded. "You looked forward." "That's not a crime," I said, "but it can become a habit. One that erases the past to make room for the future." He nodded. "I don't know how to fix it." "You don't have to fix it," I said. "Just stop pretending it was never broken." He looked at me then, really looked, and I saw the boy I used to carry on my shoulders, the boy who used to draw me cards on construction paper, the boy who used to ask, "Do you think I'll be a good dad someday?" And for the first time in a long time, I believed he might be. He left with a hug. Not forced. Not awkward. Real. That night, a knock at the door. It was Leslie. She didn't have a folder. She had a photo album. She held it out, eyes red. "I found this in Mom's closet. Thought you might want it back." She hesitated, then added, "And I was wondering if I could come in." Leslie stood in the doorway like a question she wasn't sure how to ask. She held the photo album against her chest like a shield, but her eyes, they weren't defensive. They were searching, tired, human. I was wondering if I could come in. I stepped aside without a word. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one she used to color on while Tracy made pancakes. Funny how time warps space. This old wood, once covered in glitter and syrup, now held silence like it had been trained to. She slid the album across to me. I found it behind Mom's dresses. In the attic closet, she said. Didn't even know she kept it. The leather was cracked with age. Inside, memories pressed in plastic. Birthday parties, beach trips, snowmen with crooked scarves. Clark's third-grade science fair. Leslie's piano recital. Tracy and I in a blurry selfie, grinning with wind-tousled hair. I turned the pages slowly. Each photo was a piece of a life I'd built, one that got rewritten in their stories, edited down to fragments that fit their narratives. I looked through it, she said softly, and I kept thinking, I don't remember most of this. I mean, I do vaguely, but not like this. You were there, always. Her voice cracked. I've been so wrapped up in appearances, in proving things, to Robin, to myself, maybe even to Mom's memory. I didn't realize. I erased you in the process. I didn't say anything. She wiped a tear, frustrated. You didn't deserve that dinner. I mean what we did to you. You deserved a seat. You deserved more than a seat. Still, I waited. She needed to let it out. And when you stood up that night, when you laid it all out, I wanted to be angry, embarrassed, but mostly, I was ashamed. Ashamed I needed proof before I believed what you did for us. I finally spoke. You didn't need proof. You needed perspective. She nodded slowly. Yeah. We sat in silence for a moment longer. Then she asked, why didn't you ever push back? Demand more? I smiled faintly. Because Tracy always said, let them become who they are, and love them anyway. I just forgot to remind you who I was in return. Leslie's shoulders dropped. And then, without warning, she reached across the table and took my hand. Can we start over? She whispered. I squeezed her hand gently. No, I said, but we can start from here. We sat like that for a while, no guilt, no speeches, just stillness. A new kind of silence. Not the kind that hides pain, the kind that holds space, the kind that heals. Later that night, as I placed the album on the shelf, I noticed something tucked inside the back cover. A letter. Tracy's handwriting. Unopened. Dated February 14th, 12 years ago. And it was addressed to me. I held the envelope in my hands like it was made of glass. Tracy's handwriting hadn't changed. Still those soft curves and tiny, purposeful dots on every eye. The ink had faded slightly, but the paper was perfectly preserved, tucked into the back of the album, like it had been waiting for just the right moment. 12 years. 12 Valentine's days without her. And here was one more message I never knew existed. I hesitated before opening it. I think some part of me feared what it might say. That maybe she saw all the cracks I tried to plaster over the years. Or worse, that she anticipated this future and had tried to warn me from it. But I opened it anyway. Inside was a single page. Baxter, if you're reading this, it means you found the album. I hope you didn't need to find it to remember who you are. But if you did, that's okay too. I see things in our family you don't. The way Robin looks through you like furniture. The way Leslie sometimes forgets who tied her shoes and dried her tears. You forgive easily. Maybe too easily. And that's why I love you. But if one day you feel forgotten truly, invisibly forgotten, I want you to remember this. You built everything. They just moved in. You are not their afterthought. You are the foundation. And one day, when they finally look down, they'll realize what's been holding them up all along. Until then, love loudly. Even if they don't always hear it. I always did. Happy Valentine's, my love. T. I didn't cry. Not then. I just sat there in the soft yellow light of the living room, letter trembling in my hands, heart stretched between grief and gratitude. She knew. Long before I ever spoke up, Tracy saw the shape of the silence around me, and she left me this, not to stir resentment, but to anchor me in the truth. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in my top drawer, next to the old cufflinks she gave me and the photo of us on our wedding day. That night, I slept with the window open, cold breeze and all, because for the first time in years, I didn't feel alone in the house. The next day, Clark and Leslie came by. Together. No formal plan, no grand conversation. Just a pot of coffee, some warm banana bread, and their presence. They asked questions. Real ones. They listened. Really listened. Not everything was healed. Some wounds need more than one morning. But the walls had cracked, and light was finally getting in. As they were leaving, Leslie paused in the doorway. "Oh, almost forgot," she said, handing me a small envelope. Inside, a hand-drawn Valentine. Hearts, glitter, a crooked little smiley face, and in crayon, the words, "I love you, Grandpa. Can I come over more?" It was signed, Robin Jr. I sat at the table long after they'd left, the little Valentine card from Robin Jr. still in my hand. It was barely larger than a postcard, made from construction paper and cut a little uneven, probably by safety scissors in a classroom filled with glue sticks and giggles. The hearts were lopsided, the glitter excessive, the smiley face drawn with two different-sized eyes. It was perfect, and it broke something open in me that all the apologies, explanations, and even Tracy's letter hadn't managed to fully reach. Because forgiveness doesn't always come from the people who hurt you. Sometimes it comes from the ones who never had a chance to. The next day, I received a text from Clark. "Robin Jr. won't stop talking about visiting. Says she wants to learn how to make pancakes like you used to make Mom." I chuckled and texted back, "Tell her the secret is more butter than you think is reasonable." And just like that, a plan was made. Sunday morning, just the two of us. I set out a mixing bowl and her own little apron, one Tracy had embroidered with the words chef in training back when Leslie was that age. And when Robin Jr. showed up, pigtails bouncing, eyes wide, she ran straight to me. No hesitation, no performance, just genuine, unfiltered love. We cooked. We laughed. We made a mess so spectacular the flour clouded the kitchen like a snowstorm. She asked questions about her grandma Tracy. She wanted to know how I learned to flip pancakes without using a spatula like Daddy does. I told her stories, real ones, about when Leslie got her head stuck between the porch rails and blamed it on Clark, about how Tracy once glued two socks together, trying to make the world's longest mitten, about how this house used to be loud, with dancing, with music, with life, and for the first time in a long time, it felt that way again. Later, while she colored at the kitchen table, I stepped outside and took a quiet breath of the cold air. The world hadn't changed, but mine had shifted. Maybe the apology I'd waited for wouldn't ever come in full. But this small, honest connection, it was enough. That evening, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. "Baxter," the voice said. It was Robin, not Junior. Robin. Her tone was careful, composed, the voice of a woman used to managing perception. "I heard about the pancakes," she said after a pause, "and the glitter. Thank you for being kind to her." "I wasn't doing it for you," I said plainly. "I know," she replied, "but I also know how much that means to her, and to Clark." Silence hung for a moment, then she added softer, "I don't know if I'll ever see what you see, or feel what you feel, but I don't want to be the reason Robin doesn't." It wasn't an apology, but it was a start. Before we hung up, she said one last thing. I found an old voicemail from Tracy on Clark's phone, one I hadn't heard before. She said, "Don't ever forget, your father built more than a home. He built you." I closed my eyes, because even now, Tracy was still building bridges I thought had burned. I sat in my chair by the window, Tracy's voicemail echoing in my head long after Robin hung up. He built more than a home. He built you. It's strange what words do after someone's gone. In life, they're fleeting. In memory, they become scripture. Tracy always had a way of speaking with more than just her voice. She wove her thoughts into people. She planted reminders in the spaces between moments. And now, all these years later, she was still teaching, still guiding, still softening the stone walls I'd built around the hurt. The next morning, Clark showed up unannounced. No pretense. Just him holding a thermos of coffee and that look of quiet resolve he used to get before taking a final exam. "Can I come in?" I opened the door wider. He walked straight to the living room, sat down like he belonged again. He looked tired, but clearer. "I listened to the voicemail," he said, 3 times. "I think I forgot how much she loved you, how much of you lives in everything I've ever been proud of in myself." I didn't speak. He continued. "When she died, I didn't just lose her. I think I lost my compass. And I started chasing approval wherever I could find it. Robin's family, the career, the house, the image. You didn't fit the script I was trying to write." I folded my hands, because I wasn't polished enough. "No," he said quickly, "because you were real. And real things don't shine in the same way. They endure, quietly, and sometimes painfully." That got to me. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small black journal. "Been writing down everything I remember about you. The real you. The one I ignored. I figured if I can teach my daughter who her grandfather is, maybe I'll remember who my father was, too." He handed it to me. The first page was titled, "Things I Forgot to Say to My Dad." I couldn't read it just yet. The lump in my throat got in the way. Instead, I placed it gently on the table, like it held more than paper, like it held time. "Thank you," I finally said. "No," Clark replied. "Thank you for not giving up on me." Later that day, I got a message from Leslie. A photo. It was her and Robin Jr. sitting on the floor with the photo album. Crayons, stickers, and a bright pink marker scattered across the rug. Captioned, "Memory lane got a little messy. Hope that's okay." I replied, "Messy is honest. Honest is perfect." For dinner, I heated up the leftover cherry pie Clark had brought. The crust was soggy now, feeling a bit too sweet. But I ate it all. And for once, it didn't taste like loneliness. It tasted like something being rebuilt. Slowly, tenderly, with bricks that remembered where they came from. That night, I opened the black journal. On the second page, in Clark's handwriting, was this: "I used to think you were just a quiet man. Now I know. You were the anchor in a storm I didn't even see coming." And beneath it, "Next Sunday, can we all come over for dinner?" I hadn't hosted a dinner in over a decade. Not a real one. Not with every chair filled and laughter bouncing off the walls. The dining room table had become more of a memory than a piece of furniture. Something I dusted out of habit, not expectation. But this Sunday would be different. They were coming back. All of them. And this time, they were coming by choice. That morning, I rolled up my sleeves and got to work. Not to impress, not to prove a point, but because there's a certain kind of care that goes into preparing a meal for people you've forgiven. It's quiet, intentional, healing. I pulled out Tracy's old recipe box, faded and fraying at the corners. Pot roast, garlic green beans, her cinnamon rolls, the ones she used to swear were therapeutic, to knead by hand. I followed each recipe to the letter, pausing sometimes to picture her humming to the old radio, flour in her hair, smiling like she knew the world's best secret was waiting inside a warm oven. By 5 p.m., the house smelled like memories. At 5:07, the doorbell rang. First came Clark, holding 2 bottles of wine and wearing an apron over his button-down. "Robin made me bring this," he laughed. "She said no one should show up empty-handed." Then came Leslie, carrying a huge salad bowl and a sheepish smile. Thought I'd contribute. No glitter this time. Even Robin walked in with a genuine nod, no tension, no tight smile. Just presence. And trailing behind him, bouncing like a ray of sunlight, was Robin Jr. She ran straight into the kitchen and shouted, "Grandpa, I wore my apron too." She spun to show me. Pink, with handprints and the words sous chef in training, written in permanent marker. We all laughed. The kind of laugh that fills a room with more than sound. It brings breath back into places that forgot how to inhale joy. Dinner wasn't perfect. The green beans overcooked. Leslie dropped a spoon. Clark told a story that fizzled halfway through and made everyone awkwardly chuckle. But no one cared, because it was real. No performance. No posturing. Just family, relearning each other. At one point, Clark stood up and raised a glass. To Dad, he said, for building this table, for keeping it open, even when we forgot where it was. Everyone clinked glasses, even Robin. After dessert, Robin Jr. climbed into my lap with a picture she'd drawn. Stick figures, all of us holding hands. Me in the middle, and above in bubble letters. My grandpa is the heart of this house. I didn't need a perfect ending. This was enough. This was more than enough. As they were leaving, Leslie turned at the door. There's something we'd like to ask, actually, about next month. She smiled, nervous. Would you consider hosting Easter? Easter, I repeated, blinking at Leslie. She shifted her feet, clearly unsure if the question had landed the way she hoped. It's just we thought maybe it could be here. With you. Like it used to be. Clark stood behind her, nodding slowly. Robin didn't say anything, but the fact that she didn't intervene spoke volumes. They weren't just offering a holiday. They were offering a seat at the table. Not in the corner, not by default, but as the host. As the foundation Tracy always said I was. I leaned against the doorframe, letting the moment settle in my chest. Easter had always been Tracy's favorite. She loved the idea of renewal, new life, starting again. The pastel tablecloths, the handmade place cards, the jelly beans hidden in coat pockets to make the kids laugh. We hadn't celebrated it properly in years. After she passed, it became an afterthought. Now, suddenly, it had meaning again. I'll think about it, I said, just to keep them a little on edge. Leslie exhaled with a smile. That's not a no. No, I said. It's not. The next morning, I found myself outside in the garden with a rake and gloves. The frost was just beginning to lift, and the ground had that damp, hopeful smell it gets right before spring truly arrives. I turned over the soil near the rose bush Tracy planted our first year in the house. It hadn't bloomed much the last few years. I guess it sensed the cold in the air went deeper than the weather. But as I cleared away the dead leaves and debris, I noticed a small green bud peeking out from the base. Life. Trying again. I stood there for a moment, rake in hand, and whispered, Okay, Trace. I hear you. Later that day, I called Clark. Tell Leslie Easter's on, I said, but we're doing it the old way. No caterers. No monogrammed napkins. Just real food and real people. He laughed. That's the only way I want it. Then he paused. And Dad, thanks. Again, for giving us another chance. I looked out at the yard, where a single robin had landed on the fence. Just don't waste it, I said. That evening, I opened the black journal again. On a new page, Clark had written, Sometimes redemption comes disguised as an invitation. Thanks for sending one when you didn't have to. And beneath it, a sticky note in bright pink marker. I'll bring the jelly beans. Robin Jr. The days leading up to Easter felt different this time. Not rushed. Not burdensome. Purposeful. I found myself humming in the kitchen again, like Tracy used to do when she was elbow-deep in pie crust. I dusted off old serving dishes, even the one with the chip in the corner she refused to throw out, because memories don't have to be perfect to be worth keeping. Clark and Leslie stopped by a few days early with groceries, actual groceries. Clark even brought a ham, proudly declaring, I did the math. This should feed all of us and still leave enough for midnight sandwiches. He was wrong, but I let him have the moment. Robin sent over a group text. What can we bring for the egg hunt? And is Grandpa ready for competition-level jelly bean hunting? I laughed. I texted back. Bring your best, but I've been training for this for 70 years. The morning of Easter, I woke up before sunrise. The house was quiet, glowing with a warm stillness I hadn't felt in a long time. I stepped outside with a mug of coffee and watched the first light stretch across the yard. That old rose bush. It had bloomed. Just one flower. A soft pink bloom, clinging to the branch like it had waited years for permission to return. I bent down and whispered, "She'd be proud of us, you know." I stood up straighter and got to work. By noon, the house was alive. Laughter, footsteps, doors swinging, smells of ham and rosemary and cinnamon rolls mingling in the air. Leslie set the table like she was decorating a memory. Robin Jr. ran around the backyard in bunny ears, hiding eggs with more strategy than most generals. Clark manned the grill like it was a throne. Even Robin smiled genuinely, without reserve. She helped in the kitchen, asked questions about Tracy's recipes, and when she burned the first batch of deviled eggs, she actually laughed at herself. Progress. Real progress. As we sat down to eat, I looked around the table. No fancy speeches. No grand declarations. Just family. Present. Connected. Grateful. After dessert, while everyone dozed in various corners of the house, Robin Jr. curled up next to me on the couch and whispered, "Grandpa, can we do this every year?" I looked down at her wide eyes, so full of hope, and I said, "As long as I've got time left, this table is yours." The house was quiet again. The chairs were empty, the dishes drying, and the smell of cinnamon still lingered faintly in the air. I sat in the living room, mug in hand, staring out the window as the sun dipped behind the trees. They came back, not just into the house, into my life. Not as a performance, but as family. Leslie texted later that night. "Today felt like us again. Thank you for not closing the door when you had every reason to." Clark followed with a photo. The whole table, everyone smiling, Robin Jr. climbing halfway into my lap. Underneath, one sentence. She said this was her favorite day ever. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel forgotten. I felt remembered, understood. Home, not because I got revenge, but because I made room for truth. And truth, when shared, has a way of healing even the deepest cuts. Tracy would have loved this ending, but I know somehow she already does. If you like this story, please like this video. Subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts in the comments. To hear the next story, click the video on the right.